I'm Mark Halperin.
And I'm John Heilemann. And with all due respect to Donald Trump, we're really enjoying the current season of Presidential Apprentice.
I had a great time. Some of the contestants, some of the, the folks that I met there were fantastic, and we've just had a great evening.
Happy National S'mores Day, sports fans. In our campground tonight, Bernie Sanders' bonfire, Donald Trump's tent, and the fox in the woods. But first, Hillary Clinton's kindling. At a press avail this afternoon in Exeter, New Hampshire, Clinton launched a fierce broadside at the Republican candidates over what they said on women's issues at last week's debate, and in particular at Marco Rubio's position on abortion.
When one of their major candidates, a much younger man, the senator from Florida, says there should be no exceptions for rape and incest, that is as offensive and as troubling a comment as you can hear from a major candidate running for the presidency.
Mark, we thought that Marco Rubio's no exception stance, which is shared by the likes of Scott Walker and Mike Huckabee, we thought that was politically a big deal when we first heard it. How vulnerable do you think Republicans have left themselves to this line of attack that Hillary launched today?
Very vulnerable because, look, George Bush didn't have this position, John McCain didn't, Mitt Romney didn't. It doesn't affect that many women in the country, but it is such an emotional issue. The polls are clear on this issue. And these guys taking this position, Hillary Clinton wants to be on offense. There's still rumbling that she's not doing particularly well in a variety of measures. This puts her back on offense. And the person who agrees with her is Jeb Bush. His campaign thinks that this position would be lethal in a general election.
But look, the gender gap is a huge problem for Republicans. It has been part of the reason why they've lost 5 out of the last 6 popular votes in America. She's going to win the women's vote if she's the Democratic nominee. But widening that gap is a huge goal of hers going forward. And you're, obviously right. The Planned Parenthood issue, I think, is on her side. This issue is 150% on her side. It's a crazy position politically to be in.
Rubio in the debate was a little bit unclear. In a CNN interview, he was a little unclear. Even in the Meet the Press interview yesterday, where he seemed to be saying that he supported these, he did not support exceptions for women who have abortions who are victims of rape or incest. He went over the line, though, enough for her to seize on it. And her calling him a much younger man is filled with meaning.
Right.
Complicated meaning.
But look, the Rubio position is being characterized this way publicly in a lot of places. And what you are not hearing is the Rubio campaign stand up and say, no, that's not our position. And that means to me that that is his position.
In the Clinton household, being on offense is better than being on defense. All right. The official reason Hillary Clinton was up in New Hampshire today was to promote her new plan for making college more affordable. Here's what you need to know about her proposal. It will spend $350 billion over a decade. It would encourage states to increase funding for public higher education. It would forgive students unpaid debt after 20 years. It would do other things to make college more affordable. And it would be paid for, she says, by limiting tax deductions for rich people that the campaign is not currently specifying. Of course, John, all this would need, almost all of it would need congressional approval. Is this a good plan after Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley have also introduced their own plan?
I think it's a good plan politically. I think it's a good plan substantively because of the fact that there is no issue that troubles middle-class households more than the explosive rise in tuition costs in America. There are many issues that bother them, but that one cuts to the core, and it has been off the charts, the inflation in college tuition. This plan is to say, you public universities, you have suffered from state budget cuts. We will give you money, help you make up that shortfall if you rein in tuition costs. That's a bargain that a lot of them will take and that a lot of people will like.
On the nonsensical parts of it, proposing unspecified tax increases, I think, is not wise politically. The Republicans are able to attack her, and I don't think it's good policy. If Hillary Clinton's president, John Boehner will almost certainly be Speaker of the House, and a plan that's predicated to be paid for by unspecified tax increases, I think is not going to give her a mandate if she's elected.
She seems to be suggesting that it's going to be paid for by capping itemized deductions for rich people.
Specify them. Have the courage to specify them if you want to spend that much money.
I want to fight you on that. All right. Today on Morning Joe, Donald Trump again insisted that he will not apologize to Megyn Kelly. In fact, he believes that everyone's got this whole thing all twisted around backwards.
I don't understand it myself. I mean, I have double-digit leads in every poll. I don't know if you saw Georgia just came out. I'm at 34. And, it's like a lot of good things are happening, so maybe I should just leave it the way it is. The fact is, she asked me a very inappropriate question. She should really be apologizing to me. You want to know the truth.
Right. We're a few days past the debate. We're a couple days past Bloodgate. Trump, there's poll numbers out. We could ask this question on almost any day, but I'll ask you right now, where is Donald Trump's political standing at this moment?
There's no live call poll, the kind of poll we would normally cite on this program, out there. All the polls that have been put out so far, though, with different methodology, suggest Trump is doing just fine, that he's not damaged by this. The establishment thinks he's dead. I think smarter analysts say that Trump supporters don't care about what's gone on. And I think, if anything, if he turns back to policy, which his campaign says he's going to do in the coming days, if he turns back to talking about the economy, I don't think what's happened is going to end his campaign, force him from the race, or eat substantially into where he is.
I agree with all of that, except for the fact that I think that the things that have happened in the last few days have increased the boldness of the Republican establishment to try to do something about him. I have said many times that the Republican establishment, like the Democratic establishment, is overrated and is atrophied. But to the extent that something is riling them up right now, it is Donald Trump. They were afraid of him before. They're less afraid of him now.
Some members of the establishment are. Jeb Bush has been a little bit more aggressive of late, but they're still not finding a way to actually eliminate him from the race. He's yet to start spending money. He's yet to start issuing serious policy proposals. And he's yet to find anybody who can stop him from dominating the news.
Well, I think there is a question, obviously, and we'll see how he answers it, whether he will do any of those things and qualify as serious in terms of policy proposals and other things. But there's no question that it's going to take a while to drive him from the race if that's going to happen. The question is whether all of this damage piled up, accreted damage, ultimately takes its toll.
And if anybody gets better under the shadow of all the attention to Trump. All right, conventional wisdom says if you want to be the Republican nominee for president, you should play nice with Fox News. Since Thursday's debate, Mr. Trump hasn't followed that rule, to say the least. But today he tweeted this, quote, Roger Ailes just called. He's a great guy and assures me that, quote unquote, Trump will be treated fairly on Fox News. His word is always good, exclamation point. So the head of Fox News seems to, Fox isn't denying it, called Trump and say they're going to be in good terms. There are reports that he's going to go on some Fox programs in the next few days. Yeah. Does Trump, to be the Republican nominee, need to be on good terms with Fox News?
Heilemann in quotes says the answer to that question is, I think the conventional wisdom in this case is right. Yes, he should be on. There's just too many Republican voters who watch Fox News all the time. The interesting piece of reporting today, Gabe Sherman, who wrote a book about Fox, knows the insides of that company well, says that Roger Ailes is freaked out this weekend by the amount of pro-Trump, anti-Megyn Kelly mail they've received. And when Trump didn't go on any Fox shows over the course of the weekend, especially yesterday, he realized he had to call and try to get to date.
If Gabe Sherman's reporting in New York Magazine is correct on the website, then Trump's power is even bigger than we thought. Because Fox and Ailes almost never blink. They almost never undermine Megyn Kelly. It'll be interesting to see when he goes on Fox what those interviews are like. Tea leave is Fox has barely covered Trump's comments about blood from Friday night. That tells you a lot. They're worried.
Does indeed. Coming up, Hillary Clinton in Exeter, New Hampshire, the greatest hits with special guest soloist, vocalist Dan Balz. After this word from our sponsors.
Hillary Clinton cooked up quite a storm today in Exeter, New Hampshire. She was there to talk about college loans, as we said, but she made remarks about reproductive rights and also about Donald Trump. Shook things up. Let's go to the videotape.
While what Donald Trump said about Megyn Kelly is outrageous, what the rest of the Republicans are saying about all women is also outrageous. What a lot of the men on that stage in that debate said was offensive. And I want people to understand, if you just focus on maybe the biggest showman on the stage, you lose the thread here. I don't want people to be confused here about the outrageous comments by one and just say, we're focused on this and we're going to let the fact that there should be no exceptions for rape or incest go unnoticed or unmentioned. I'm not going to let that happen. I know it makes great TV. I think the guy went way overboard, offensive, outrageous, pick your adjective. But what Marco Rubio said has as much of an impact in terms of where the Republican Party is today as anybody else on that stage. And it is deeply troubling, and it should be to the press, not just to those of us who've been doing this work for so long.
Fired up and I would say authentic. We're going to talk about that piece of tape and what Hillary Clinton did today. Now with our friend, the Washington Post chief correspondent on politics, Dan Balz, joining us from the Post newsroom in Washington. Dan, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
What do you make of both the nature of what Hillary Clinton said and what you think the motivation might have been?
Well, the motivation is pretty clear. She wants to make this a fight not just about her and Donald Trump or just a campaign about Donald Trump. She wants to continue to make the fight against the Republican Party. I mean, she has been doing this for some time, as you know, and this gave her another opportunity to pivot away from Donald Trump to say what she wanted to say about him, but also to try to go after others who she probably believes are more likely to be her opponent if she's the Democratic nominee than Donald Trump.
Dan, every Republican that you listen to over the last few days has said something to the effect of Donald Trump is not affecting the party. Donald Trump is just Donald Trump. And the only person who's going to determine the party's image is going to be the eventual nominee. This seems to me to be an instance in which that is disproving that case, that this is a way in which Trump is creating a springboard for a broader argument.
Well, I think that's exactly right, and I think that the candidates have been tentative in going after Donald Trump. I mean, they make their statements when he does something, as he did on Friday night about Megyn Kelly, but then they kind of back off and go their own way for a variety of reasons, and we could discuss that. But what Hillary Clinton is doing is trying to say that Donald Trump is not unrepresentative of the others in the race, that they are in one way or another saying things that are out of the mainstream or beyond the pale or whatever rhetoric she might use to it. And it was interesting that she went specifically after Marco Rubio. We know that the Clinton people see, or a lot of Democrats see in Marco Rubio the potential to be a strong general election candidate. I think the Rubio people think that regardless of what he said and how he said it in the debate about the rape and incest exceptions, that he has left himself some wiggle room on that in the future. We will see. But she is wasting no time in trying to pin all of their ears back.
Dan, none of us know what's happening with Trump. Let's stipulate, and none of us know where it's going to end up. But I'm trying to get a sense of what you think the other campaigns feel. They obviously are sick. The candidates themselves are sick of answering questions about him. Right now, within these leading presidential campaigns, is there a Trump strategy, or are they trying to do other things and hope that Trump doesn't dominate?
I think they still hope that Trump doesn't dominate. I think they feel they have to do the bare minimum when he is quite outrageous in his comments, but I think that most of them still believe that in one way or another he will kind of sink under his own weight, that he will be the engine of his own undoing, and that they need not do anything in particular. They want to run their own race. They want to say things the way they want to say them. As you say, they're sick and tired of all of us asking them about Donald Trump. But as you say, I mean, I think we're all of a mind at this point that we can't predict how this Trump candidacy is going to go, whether it will continue to go up or down or stay level. But as long as he is a factor, it has the potential to rub off on the whole party. And I think that's what they're trying to calibrate.
Dan, do you see, I mean, I know we talked before about the show, there have been various surveys that have shown that Trump emerged, if nothing, at least in as good a position as he was before the debate and before this incident with Megyn Kelly, possibly better off. Wouldn't that cause these Republican campaigns to rethink that strategy? I mean, if he's not sinking under his own weight now, apparently, what do they hope could come along that would cause him to sink?
I don't know, John. I think it's a very central question of where we are in the campaign right now. I think a lot of people, myself included, thought when he said what he said about John McCain a few weeks ago that would cause him problems. It clearly did not. I think a lot of people think what he said about Megyn Kelly would cause him problems. We don't know whether that's the case or not. The early indication is that it hasn't particularly hurt him, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see whether this is, something where there's a kind of the air slowly becomes out of his balloon, or whether it stays afloat for a while. But I think that the longer the poll numbers show that he's holding up, that will, A, embolden Donald Trump to continue to do exactly as he has been doing, to run the campaign the way he's been running it, to say the kinds of things he feels he wants to say at any given moment, and it will force the others to rethink what they ought to do about it.
Okay. Dan Balz, The Washington Post. Dan, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll be right back with a play on words and the actor, Jason Segel.
The late David Foster Wallace was the author of the canonical postmodern novel Infinite Jest. It is totally great. I totally read it. Definitely read it. Skimmed it. Part of it. Okay, none of it. But other people say it's brilliant. Point is, everyone has a copy, and although only the bravest among us can finish it, recently we spoke with someone so brave that he not only read the book, but is playing the role of David Foster Wallace in a new movie called The End of the Tour, which I have seen and is brilliant. The brave soul in question is Jason Segel of How I Met Your Mother and I Love You Man fame. We were eager to know how he prepared for such a complicated, deeply serious part.
I think as a young comedy writer, you're introduced to the sort of short-form nonfiction David Foster Wallace. There's a couple compilations, Consider the Lobster, a supposedly fun thing I'll never do again, that are as funny essays as you'll ever read by anybody. So that was sort of my experience. And when I got the script, I jumped into Infinite Jest, which is a different beast. It's 1,000+ pages. It's funny, but it's difficult, and it's intensely personal. And I think in answer to prep, that's how I got to know David Foster Wallace, because I felt like a man had laid himself bare on the page.
I have heard you tell the story of what happened when you went to buy that book, but I want you to tell it now.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I went to my local bookstore, and I set down Infinite Jest on the table, and there was a girl behind who literally rolled her eyes at me, and she said, "Oh God, Infinite Jest. Every guy I've ever dated has an unread copy on his bookshelf." And I think that is true. That is most people's experience with Infinite Jest. It's something that's good to own, and maybe you try to get halfway through it, but it's a difficult book. There happened to be 3 guys who worked at the bookshop who had read it and really took me through the book. We would read 100 pages a week and then get together on Sundays and talk about them. And it was one of the most beautiful, intimate experiences I've had, because you end up talking about the themes of the book, which are loneliness and dissatisfaction and reaching this age, you know, in your early mid-30s where you suddenly realize, oh, I've been working really hard towards getting there. And then you find out this secret that there is no there, that this road just goes on forever, and you got to figure out how to be okay with what's right now.
The movie is also kind of a movie about journalism, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's about it's about a guy named David Lipsky who goes to interview Foster Wallace in 1996 at the end of his book tour for Infinite Jest, and they spend days together in this very intense, intimate way.
Yeah.
You have done a lot of tours, promoting a lot of things. You've dealt with a lot of journalists in your life. What do you think the movie reveals about the nature of the writer-subject or the writer-celebrity relationship?
Well, this movie is doubly complicated because you have that, but at the same time, you also have the fact that David Lipsky had a book come out the same year that didn't do nearly as well as Infinite Jest did. So you also have a guy meeting his idol, who he both idolizes and wants to dethrone. To go to the dethrone aspect, the tricky thing about being interviewed is when all of a sudden you realize that the person interviewing you might have interests that diverge from your own. You know, that you are trying to communicate a message in the interview and get a point across, and the person who's interviewing you might want to take your words and twist them and reveal something about you. And that's what comes into play in the movie. Is David Lipsky goes in with a bit of an agenda because there had been addiction rumors swirling around David Foster Wallace. So David Foster Wallace wants to talk about the themes of his book, and David Lipsky wants to expose him.
Has that happened to you?
No, because
dealing with journalists where someone has tried to do that to you?
No, you know, it really hasn't. I don't think these days you would ever agree to an interview that was 4 days long.
When I got this job at Bloomberg, they asked me to gain 40 pounds, and I did it through martinis and steak.
Yes.
How did you gain your weight for this movie?
It's funny you should ask. I put myself on a Hot Pocket diet.
Yeah. So I was told. Now, that's an odd choice for me. Do you love the Hot Pocket, or just an efficient way to gain weight?
I have fond memories of Hot Pockets from growing up, you know.
Was there a vanilla milkshake chaser, or just the Hot Pocket?
Yeah, there was a lot of ice cream as well. And this all sounds fun. It sounds like a little kid's dream, and it is for like the first 3 days. And after that, you just feel terrible all the time. You just want to nap. You don't want to do anything. But I got to say, that actually helped playing the part, because there is something heavy, both literally but also sort of emotionally, that's going on with David Foster Wallace. He's going through a really tough moment where he's achieved everything that he dreamed of, and yet he still feels the same. That is a terrible moment. I've had it.
How was it working with Jesse Eisenberg, who plays David Lipsky in the movie? How was that?
It's the best acting experience of my life. I think he's the most talented actor, I've ever been around. He is so prepared. He is so diligent about understanding why he's saying or doing what he's saying or doing as a character. And it brought out the best in me, surely, because I knew that I was going to be playing tennis against the best opponents around.
And you guys basically lived together. This movie was shot in Grand Rapids, Michigan. You guys basically commuted to work together back and forth. He did something to you the first day of shooting that kind of set the tenor for things.
Well, it was before we started shooting. It was when we had our first meet and greet. And we were sniffing each other out. And somebody asked me how I started writing. And I said this thing that I say is pat answer. Where I said, oh, it was by necessity. Nobody was knocking down my door to play Captain America. And then just really quietly, but loud enough for me to hear, Jesse said, no, but you could probably play the captain of a weaker country. And I knew that's what was going to go on for about a month, and it was the best.
I've seen you quoted in the last, in recent days on two things. This is basically, we talk about politics most of the time, and we dabble in entertainment.
Okay, cool.
But I've heard two things. One, you like to make a movie opposite Hillary Clinton. And two, you want to go on a mandate with Barack Obama. So talk about those two things.
Well, I have two great answers to that. It wasn't that I wanted to make a movie with Hillary Clinton. It was while I was doing How I Met Your Mother, the constant question was, who's the mother? Who's the mother going to be? Who's the mother going to be? And I started to just get tired of the question 5 or 6 years in. I also didn't know the answer. So at one point I said, I'm hoping for Hillary Clinton. I got the most graceful, amazing letter at one point from Hillary Clinton or her people saying that she's very flattered, but she is going to be too busy to be the mother on How I Met Your Mother, which I have saved. I also was lucky enough to meet Barack Obama. They did a screening of Muppets at the White House for children of veterans, and I was brought there, and you're so nervous, and you hear the man approaching, and he walks in, and he looked at me, and he said, "Hey, I love you, man." Because I did a movie called I Love You, Man. And I was so nervous that I...
He's a clever guy.
Yeah.
Clever.
I was more clever. I responded nervously with, I love you too, Mr. President.
That comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Not the first time.
I've never felt more awkward in my life. Only to be followed more awkwardly by saying, we're doing a screening tonight in Georgetown. You should come. There'll be free snacks.
I'm sure you didn't say all of that.
I did.
You've just created that in your mind.
Nope, that's real.
Yeah.
My series is a life of really uncomfortable moments.
Yeah.
My life is a series of uncomfortable moments.
I assume he didn't come.
No, he didn't come. He said, that's not what I need. Free snacks.
That would have been a big letdown.
Yeah.
Thanks to Jason Segel. We'll be right back. We're only on the tube a half an hour a day, but we're live 24/7 on BloombergPolitics.com.
Remember, we're on twice a day at 5 and at 8 Eastern Time. Until tomorrow, thanks for watching. Sayonara.